This is New Patron Series number 48. We want to look into the issue of Yeshua and the angels of Yahweh. What was it that Yeshua taught about the angels, the Malachim? First, a little background. We want to look at the angels in Yeshua's Jewish culture and era. The names of angels correspond in like manner to events which are the angels' task to realize. The Talmud tells us that every angel has only one mission. Their missions are their names. For example, Baraki El means hail of God. That's an angel that causes hailstorms. In most cases, that means that they don't last long enough for their names to warrant mention because they're created for one purpose. When the purpose is done, they're done. They just stop existing. But archangels, like Raphael, healing of God, or healer of God, are permanent. In the Pirkei Avot, Mishnah 4:13, we hear this about angels. When a person observes a commandment or does another good deed, a good angel is created. But when he commits a sin, then an accusing angel, Mekatreg, is created. I'm quoting here and some other places from Rabbi Hillel ben David, that is Gregory Killian, hereafter cited Killian. When Ezekiel saw them, that is the angels of God, in the form of unreasoning animals, they were called Hayot, or creatures. We find that in the book of Ezekiel. That's what they look like. These are the Hayot. This is one person's. It's very difficult to describe these things because the way they're described in the Bible, it makes them very difficult to visualize. And so you can find many, many different artists who come up with many different ways to portray these creatures. But in this particular artist has portrayed it this way, with God up on a throne in the heavens handing a scroll to Ezekiel, and the angels between them, which turned not when they went, were called Ophanim, which means wheels. These are the way the wheels are represented, and they're covered with eyes, with consciousness. When God dispatched the angels to Abraham to announce the glad tidings, they resembled and were thus called men. That is the word there would be anashim. When God sent the angels to destroy Sodom, they were called messengers, Malachim. When God sent them to Isaiah to burn him with hot coal because he neglected to warn Israel, to burn his lips because he's a man of unclean lips, and so on, they were called seraphim, as it is said, "Then flew one of the seraphim unto me, having a live coal in his hand, and he laid it upon my mouth." The most elevated heavenly beings have been called cherubim. We very often use the word cherubim. That's not a good pronunciation, and our ideas about the cherubim are not quite correct. We think of them as little children with wings and so on, but it's very different than that, because each elevated being among men is also called a cherub, as it is said of the king of Tyre, "Thou wast the anointed cherub that covereth." The cherubim stood upon the temple ark in a form taken from other Near Eastern temple images, as we see in this graphic here. So all this is what Rabbi Ben David has to say about these things, and I'm quoting from him using some of his material because it's very well researched. Now, according to the Sefer Yetzirah, the names of angels were given according to their tasks. In prophecy, we find different kinds of angel. In particular, the book of Ezekiel opens with a vision of a divine chariot. In this vision, we encounter the following: the Ophanim, wheels filled with eyes; The seraphim, from the verb meaning to burn. The kazmalim, no translation in modern Hebrew. The word kazmal was drafted to mean electricity. Ishim, ish means man, but men is anashim. Saying ishim would be like saying mans in English. In Mark's gospel, a neoniskon, a young man, sits where Jesus' body had been laying in the empty tomb. In Matthew's account, it is an angel, and his position is not within the tomb, but sitting on the stone without. Luke has two men in shining apparel, stole lukein, in white long robes, implying what is not said, that the neonasculine youth is an angel. So in Mark, it's just called a young man, but it's understood in the later Gospels as an angel, a form of an angel. The cherubim, which is transliterated cherub in English, these are described variously in the Tanakh and are not like our mental image of a cherub, as I've said. So in Genesis, two cherubim hold swords of revolving fire, guarding the entrance to Eden when Adam and Eve are expelled, so that man does not re-enter until he's ready. In Exodus, the top of the ark is adorned with two cherubim that have childlike faces and two huge wings that make a canopy over the ark. In Ezekiel, the four faces of the chayot are described as being those of a man, a lion, an eagle, and a cherub. 2 verses later, the list replaces cherub with a bull, so they're associated with bulls somehow. As this is all, again, what Killian has to say about these things. Now, this table shows the 10 kinds of angels that emanate from each sephira of the heavens, and it translates the names for each level according to Maimonides' work, Yesodai HaTorah. This again was supplied by Killian, so very well done. So if we look at the list on the far left, we have the Sephira, or the Sephirot. We have Keter, Chachma, Bina, Hesed, etc., all the way down to Malchut. And then the level of the angelic being that exists and is emanated from each of those Sephirot is listed. From Keter, we have the Chayot HaKodesh. From Chachma, we have the Ophanim. From Bina, we have the Erelim, and so on down. And then we have the translation of these things that's used very often in English on the far right side of the columns. The holy living ones, the wheels, the valiant ones, the shining ones. The godly beings, the Elohim and the sons of God, the Bene Elohim, and the cherubim and the guardian angels, which emanate from Malchut. Now the Malachim, or divine messengers, which are both angels and archangels, emanate from Tiferet of the fifth heaven. The Elohim, the princes or the judges who, quote, constructed Adam or humanity, emanate from the fourth heaven. The Bene Elohim, or sons of the Elohim, or sons of God, were the same kind of angels who also fell to the earth and had intercourse with human women to produce the race of Nephilim, the giants. The Ishim, or guardian angels, protect specific people or groups. According to Matthew, Yeshua said, "Their angels," that is, those who guard the little ones, meaning his disciples, not children, as erroneously assumed. "Their angels in the heavens always see the face of my Abba, who is in the heavens." In Acts, after Peter has been escorted out of prison by an angel, he went to the home of Mary, the mother of John, also called Mark. The servant girl, Rhoda, recognized his voice and ran back to tell the group that Peter was there. However, the group replied, "It must be his angel," because they thought he was still in jail. In late Second Temple Judaism, the second, first centuries before Yeshua, and in the first century Judaism, contemporary with Yeshua, the archangel Gabriel becomes the revealer of apocalyptic and also eschatological knowledge. Gabriel, God is my strength, becomes the angel of revelation and apocalypse during this period and beyond, and continues. We find Gabriel being revealer in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th century Christian documents. In the Hebrew Bible, Gabriel appears to the prophet Daniel to explain his visions. The archangel appears in such other ancient Jewish writings as the Book of Enoch. Alongside the archangel Michael, Gabriel is described as the guardian angel of Israel, defending this people against the angels of the other nations, because each nation has an angel. In the book of Revelations, each church has an angel. So it's a guardian of a group as well as individuals. The Gospel of Luke relates the stories of the Annunciation, in which the angel Gabriel appears to Zechariah and to the Virgin Mary, foretelling the births of John the Baptist and Jesus, respectively. Gabriel was the archangel, by the way, who revealed Islam to Muhammad. And every direction Muhammad turned, he saw the archangel Gabriel. He was always in front of his face. Now, recently, a very interesting item was discovered. It's known as the Gabriel stone. It's pretty clearly dated by the shape and form of the letters by paleography to sometime between the late 1st century BC and the early 1st century contemporary with Yeshua. This dating is confirmed by the Hebrew of the text, which is post-biblical and pre-Mishnaic. I'm quoting now from Yardeni's article in Biblical Archaeology, a new Dead Sea Scroll in stone. In addition to the phrase, "I am Gabriel," so he identifies who he is, the composition refers to the messenger Malach or archangel Michael, who is mentioned in Daniel 10:13 in the New Testament, in Revelations, and in Jude, and in extra biblical sources like Enoch and the Dead Sea Scroll known as the War Scroll. In these extra biblical sources, Michael is frequently mentioned together with Gabriel. Now, the text as a whole is eschatological, meaning it refers to the end of days. It's expecting the end of days. The composer of this text belongs to a group supporting the Davidic Messiah, who would come with legions of angel warriors to war against the Romans and make Israel into the highest and greatest state in the world. And that is according to Yardeni. But Professor Israel Noel of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem asserted in 2008 that it was a Jewish text from the late 1st century BCE that speaks about a Messiah who dies a violent death and rises again from the dead on the 3rd day, a Messiah ben Joseph, or Messiah of Ephraim. This was something that was quite controversial because people thought it could be something that was an idea of a Messiah who would die and then rise again on the 3rd day was something that maybe existed in Jewish thought before the time of Yeshua. But Cole no longer maintains this position, and there are many doubts about the text's authenticity that have been raised by some scholars. In spite of that, it's still under study by other scholars. Now, with that background, let's take a look at angels in the Davrim and Malachim, or the sayings of Yeshua, that can be identified as authentic sayings. In Mark 8:38, repeated in Matthew and Luke, Yeshua says, "Whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man, the Bar Enosh, be ashamed when he cometh in the glory of his Father, Abba, with the holy angels." Now, this is one of the sayings that scholars point to indicate that Yeshua, although he did identify himself as a Bar Enosh, that also identified the heavenly Bar Enosh, the Son of Man, as a separate figure from him. And this is taken up and repeated with various kinds of expansions in Matthew and Luke. So one of the things that we might say is that Yeshua taught that the Bar Enosh leads unfallen angels, not the fallen angels, but the unfallen angels, the Beni Elohim, the sons of God, onto the earth and into the human world when the Messianic age arrives. Here's something else from Mark, repeated in Matthew and Luke with expansions. For in the Kima, the afterlife in the Olam of God for the righteous, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, i.e. they're neither male nor female, but are as the angels which are in the heavens. Now, this is a teaching that angels dwell in the heavens, and the heavens are multiple. There are 10 heavens in the Enochian scheme. And that these angels are androgynous, meaning they're whole or complete or lacking nothing, like the Father, Mother, God, Abba. They, we can think of them as both male and female, or masculine and feminine, or we can think of them as gender neutral, but they are like the Father, Mother, God, the Abba. They are whole and complete. And this we find in Mark 13:32, repeated in Matthew and Luke. But of that day and that hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels which are in the heavens, neither the Son, the Bar Enosh, but only the Father, the Abba. And again, that's where the Bar Enosh, the Son of Man, is differentiated by Yeshua from himself as a separate being. Now, this is found in what we call the little apocalypse of Mark 13, which itself is derived from the eschatological theology and identification of Yeshua as the Davidic Messiah. And this was done in the apostolic period before the time of Paul. But so it's not really, though that whole apocalypse are not words of Jesus. But I consider this concluding phrase to be an authentic Devar, because very often in the Gospels, something that Yeshua actually said is then expanded and connected to a bunch of other things to give it authority. And here is the connection. No man knoweth. And remember that the angels do not know what goes on. We'll look at that. The angels are not able to actually foretell the future, only just a small part of the future, because they fly so high and so close to the veils of heaven. Now here's more on the same topic. In Yeshua's view, angels of any rank were merely messengers of God, Malachim. Maimonides wrote, how can it enter your mind to say that the Shaidim, the demons, know the future, when even the ministering angels do not know it? Say rather thus, they hear from behind the curtain or the veils of the heavens what is about to happen. Neither angels nor demons know, quote, what is to happen for many days to come and for times that are far off, but they can only inform of that which is to happen in the near future. So we confer this little saying from the Gospel of John, the Son of Man, the Bar Enosh, can do nothing by himself. He can only do what he sees the Abba doing, which may or may not be an authentic saying of Yeshua. Now we have the parable of Lazarus that is told by Yeshua. It is a mashal, it's an authentic mashal. And he says that Lazarus the beggar died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. That means that he went up into the place where the righteous children of Abraham go after death. The rich man also died and was buried, and being in torment in Hades, which is, this is written by Luke, so he uses the term Hades, not Gehenna or anything else. And being in torment in Hades, he looked up and saw Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. Well, this is a version with modifications of an authentic parable of Yeshua. So let's look at it a little more closely. In this, he would have taught that ministering angels, which are also described as ministering to Yeshua in his retreat in the wilderness, the ministering angels comfort the poor and the suffering after death, but not the rich who do not care for the poor. So that would be a teaching of Yeshua about the angels. We can confer 1 John 3:17, which is obviously based on an understanding of the teachings of Yeshua. Whoso hath this world's good, and seeth his brother have need, and shutteth up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwelleth the love of God in him? In John, we have this very interesting statement that I think is authentic. Verily, verily, I say unto you, hereafter ye, and he's speaking to Nathanael, who becomes a disciple, hereafter ye shall see heavens open, and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man, the Bar Anash. In this authentic davar, Yeshua says that during the Messianic age, angels will communicate directly with the Bar Anash saints as they did in Jacob's dream of the ladder, the Sulam, which connects heaven and earth and brought angel messengers directly to Jacob. So, are there other sayings of Yeshua that might reveal his view of angels? Well, the first thing I should say is that angels do not appear very much in the teachings of Yeshua or in Q. They first start to appear really in the writings of Paul and then of Mark. Angels are really a fascination that early Christianity had and dwelt upon. So we have to search pretty hard to find something connected with an authentic teaching of Yeshua about angels. In John 10:34, Jesus quotes from Psalm 82:6. Jesus quotes many times from the Psalms, and of course the early Christians use the Psalms as proof texts. But here's what the Psalm in John's Gospel is quoted as saying: "You are gods," or Elohim, "and children, B'nai, of the Most High." Now, the authors of the Gospel have composed a diatribe against, quote, the Jews that they put into Jesus' mouth, quoting from this psalm. However, the historical Yeshua may have quoted this verse of Psalm 82 as a rebuttal of his accusers. So let's take a look at the psalm. God, Elohim, stands up to preside over the heavenly council. This is an idea of many of the early Psalms and early Hebrew ideas. In fact, it's this heavenly council, these Elohim, that create Adam and Eve. In the midst of the judges, and that's another translation for the word Elohim, he, God, judgeth. That is, he's going to give them hell. He's going to reprimand them. He says, how long will ye judge unjustly and respect the persons of the wicked? That is, how long will you be acting in this way? Because these Elohim are not acting properly. They're not overseeing the earth and the issues of mankind with justice. How long will you judge unjustly against the poor and the orphans? But rather you should do justice to the afflicted and destitute. Rescue the poor and needy. Deliver them out of the hand of the wicked. The wicked, speaking of the wicked, they are ignorant. They have no understanding of my ways. They walk in darkness. And the just foundations of the earth tremble in anger. The foundations of the earth are the intentions that God inscribed into creation. I said, and now God is speaking, though you are gods, Elohim, and children, B'nai, sons of the Most High, they're the B'nai Elohim as well, you will die no differently than any mortal. You will fall like one of the princes. So what he's saying is these Elohim who have neglected their duties towards justice and mankind are going to die. They're angels that he's created, and the angels have a specific life term and a purpose. So then the psalmist says, rise up, O God, O Elohim, judge the wicked rulers of the earth, for all the nations are yours. So these wicked rulers of the earth may not just be the human rulers, they may be the archons and evil archons that are spoken about by Paul in his epistles that are ruling the earth in this evil age. Yeshua's Basor is his gospel. What he taught, what he preached to people was that the end of this evil age is now coming. And God's way and will is going to come upon the earth, and God's Malkuth, not kingdom, but kingship or lordship or rulership, is going to be established on earth and among human beings. Now the Elohim are the princes who constructed Adam or humanity and emanate from the fourth heaven, and the B'nai Elohim, or the sons of the Elohim, were the same level of angels who fell under the leadership of Satanael. This is this famous painting of the creation of Adam shows God, Elohim, with a host of other beings involved in the creation of Adam, the Elohim. Now, if Yeshua quoted from the Psalms, I'm assuming that this may have been true, he implied that the angels who influenced his accusers were the Shaidim, the demons, whose bodies were made of fire and air, which may be what Paul had in mind in 2 Corinthians when he warned Satan can transform himself into an angel of light. Here's a little bit more. The Gospel of Thomas, Logan 88, speaks to the disciples and tells them what to expect after they die, after they leave their bodies. So after you faithful disciples die, the angels and the prophets will come to you and give you those things you already have, meaning stored in your heart from your good works. And you will say to yourselves, when will they come and take what is theirs? So Logan 88 refers specifically to the after-death realities that Yeshua's disciples will discover, possibly also experienced in Merkabah visions. And here he prepares his disciples for the reception into heaven after death. Now the convention of gift giving and receiving was that when one entered into another's home or sovereign place, he was given gifts, food and drink, hospitality, and perhaps other gifts. He then must reciprocate by offering gifts to the host. But what can the disciples offer? They must offer the treasure they have accumulated in their hearts, because that's all they can take with them. But the angels and the prophets of heaven do not come to accept the reciprocal gifts, so the disciples wonder, when will they come and take what is theirs? The paradox is that unlike human gifting conventions, Godhead and those in heaven do not lack. They need nothing because they are shalem, spiritually whole, complete, and perfected, or androgynous. You can offer them gifts. They will not be refused, for that would be quite non-host worthy, but they never will come to accept them. Instead, they are givers only. God is only a giver, and the angels are givers for their tasks. So Yeshua taught that angels are created to assist and guide humanity, even after death. In 1 Corinthians, Paul asks rhetorically, do you not know that we will judge the angels? And this may reflect a teaching of Yeshua that even though humanity was created a little lower than the angels, as we find in Psalm 8:5 and is restated again in the Epistle of the Hebrews 2.7, humanity, mankind, Adam, was created a little lower than the angels, i.e. in the pardes of the third heaven. In the Kima of the Messianic age, when the saints die, they will ascend to higher levels of God's olam than those occupied by the angels